Hello and welcome to Analyst Conversation, your platform for insightful discussions on the issues shaping Nigeria's political, economic and security landscape. I'm Roland Olabode, and today we have with us a respected public affairs analyst, Benedict Olalekan Agunloye, who will help us examine some of the biggest stories making headlines. On today's edition, we'll discuss the EFCC's freezing of the Osun State Government's account over alleged suspicious transactions linked to an investigation into 11 billion naira public funds. We'll also analyze comments by Bishop John Onaiyekan, who says President Bola Tinubu is not being told the truth about the state of the economy, alongside Senator George Akume's statement that President Tinubu is committed to strengthening his partnership with the Catholic bishops. We'll also look at the decision by the Inspector General of Police to remove 6 MOPOL commanders attached to Total Energies over allegations of a monthly 70,000 naira extortion of officers. Stay with us as we break down these stories, separate facts from opinion, and explore what they mean for governance, accountability, and the Nigerian people. We'll take a short break and begin the conversation when we're back. This is the Analyst Conversation. Welcome back to Analyst Conversation. We're joined by our analyst, Mr. Benedict. Thank you for joining us on the show once again.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure.
Yes, always a pleasure having you. Now, let's jump into the conversation. This one's quite a recent one, and it's been very controversial of late. We have the EFCC freezing one of Ekiti State Government's accounts over alleged transactions and frauds. I would ask, is this normal? Is it the normal thing for the EFCC to freeze a sitting state government's operational account? Or is this an unusually aggressive move by the EFCC?
Well, we need to get the details and know what the proceedings have been. If EFCC has gone out of the legal and procedural powers available to them, I'm sure that the court would overrule such decision. Or if it was an order of a court, of course it is not the Supreme Court, so you can get a higher court to vacate the order. Now, when you look at our processes, a lot of things we do not follow processes in doing them right. Now, when you fail to follow your own process or the process and guidelines that are set down in how certain things should be done, you of course risk getting such order and such encumbrance as you are having in this situation.
Well, we have the EFCC coming out with a public statement, and they're even appearing saying that this is from the Constitution. They have the right to actually freeze their account. And we have the Osun government coming out to say that this is more of an attack because there is a governorship election that's coming on soon. Who are we to believe here?
Well, I think the election is just a few days away. Now, whatever has not been done in the last 3 years is not what you are going to do in the next 3 or 4 days. Right now, the state is charged for election and little or no governance is going to happen from now till next week. So, to a large extent, the excuse of, they are trying to stifle the government from doing its job, I think is just appealing to sentiment. Like I said, if EFCC say, the law permits us to do what we have done, and you think the law does not permit, then the state attorney general should be in court, filing processes and getting an order to vacate whatsoever decision that, or whatever order that EFCC has gotten against them. So I think that this is a government-to-government issue, but that should be resolved within the confines of the law. But of course, because the governor wants you to see that he's being bullied, in my opinion, so that he can get sympathy vote, or so to say. Obviously, when you come to election, Osun all its life has been a swing state. You really couldn't say Osun belongs to any particular direction. Whether in presidential election or in governorship election, you send the result go different way over time. I remember even in 2011, Ribadu won Osun. Jonathan of PDP did not win, neither did Buhari of CPC or any other candidate. It was the Ribadu of then AC or ACN that won Osun in 2011. So Osun for me has always been a swing state. So anything you can lay your hand upon can be used in the interest of swaying the voters. So for me, I think that rather than the governor claiming and being victimized and trying to get sympathy, go to court and vacate the order. If they say you have erred and you know you have not erred, the court is there to interpret. It is not for EFCC to interpret the law when there is a conflict, nor for any party to the conflict to interpret. They should go to court and let the court decide.
People say that going to court, it's another process of its own, right? And to now, intentionally want to go to court on this issue, it would be a bit distracting, in fact, for an election that's fast approaching.
Well, it's not election money that we are talking about here. It's not INEC that owns the money in question. It is an account that belongs to the state government. It is not an account that belongs to a Accord party or to PDP or to APC. So if it doesn't belong to any party and we are few days from election, right, I think that we should separate governance and politics. The governance in this would have been EFCC say, oh, you have breached some process. You say you have not breached. The Attorney General is just one person. The governor doesn't need to go to court. But the state has an Attorney General, the state has a retinue of lawyers. They should be able to go to court and get the action done without distracting any other person. The Attorney General of Osun State is not the campaign manager of the governor. Neither is he the chairman of the campaign council. So him or her going to court in this instance does not derail the campaign process of the governor. And because it is not a court party account, neither is it PDP account, it is Osun State Government account. So in my opinion, that account has nothing to do with the election, except perhaps you are now saying you need to borrow or move government money to use for the party and pay back after election. If that is not the case, then they should focus on their election and you leave the Attorney General to go to court and get appropriate court action. We've seen them in Osun file all manners of ex parte motion here and there, stay of execution and all manner. So those are not new to the lawyers. They know what to do, and they should do just that and leave the sentiment out of it. Osun State Government is not a Accord party. The governor is a member of the party. The governor is contesting on the platform of the party. Not so when you're talking about the election and we're talking about Osun money, I think they should be separated.
Yes, they should be separated, in fact. However, looking at that case, you could say that it's a big blow on the face of the current government if there are accusations of fraud and moving of monies to unverified accounts from that particular government. It could be said that it might taint their election proceedings, it might taint their campaign proceedings.
That is why they should go to court and clear the matter, not leave it in the court of public opinion. Go to court and get an order, right? A court order in this instance will be valid. Osun State have high courts all over the state. There is also a federal high court situated in Osogbo. So you cannot say it is impossible to access the court. The courts are not on strike. Even if the courts are on holiday, there are always judges who are on holiday duties. And the state government cannot say they do not know which court is on holiday duty in the state where they can get an order. So I think it's not a public debate or issue of, this is a subject of law, and then they should deal with it legally. So if you are now speaking, you are speaking to the fact that whereas EFCC said we have done A, B, C, D, we have got a court order that vacates whatever action EFCC has done. And this is exactly what we have done. So it will not be a matter of witch hunt. It should not be, like I say, building the sentiment. Let's have the facts. Okay, we don't know her or we know her. But when you live around sentiments and you live around gossip sometimes do not have the whole fact. Sometimes it is twisted for the purpose of pleasing the particular listener. But when you have all the facts and the figures on the table, then you can see them, and then you know what is right and what is wrong. There has been payment, there has not been no payment, there has been contract, there has not been no contract, there has been agreement or no agreement. The validity of those agreements will best be determined in the court of law. And if you are able to get that through, then you are now speaking on the campaign ground, and you are showing and you are publishing an evidence that you have been vindicated, or that you have facts at least to show that what they said you have done is not the situation. Until you get to that point, for me, it will just be appealing to sentiment and trying to get pity party.
Now, let's talk about Cardinal John Onaiyekan, who revealed during his meeting with the Catholic Bishops' Conference and Tinubu. They pointed out a number of things around him. You know, they had a conversation where they told the president that the economy is not helping the poor, and there were, you know, pushbacks on that conversation. Well, I would be asking, he said that there are a lot of persons around Tinubu that are not telling him the truth. Is this a pattern of this current administration, or is this something new?
Around the cardinal himself, there are people who are also not telling him the truth. Every church in Nigeria have directors, permanent secretaries, and head of agencies. Some of them who are not doing their job, but when they go to the head of their churches, do they tell them how they are contributing to the system not working? No, they just report what they think others have not done correctly. Majority of them do not tell the head of their churches, this is how I or my office is contributing to the problems in the land. So when you come to followership at the top, we have problems. A lot of people who are followers do not tell their ogas the whole truth. They just want to say to their bosses what they think their bosses want to hear. Some of them do it to keep their job. Some of them do it because they are benefiting from the crisis. And if they report the truth and the loopholes are blocked, then their source of money is going to be blocked. So for that, it is not far-fetched that there will be people around the president or any office holder in Nigeria who do not tell them the whole truth. And when we come to us, what are our information flow system? What are our data gathering system? Very poor. Every time we want to pontificate, we are referring to World Bank, we are referring to international organization, we are referring to MBS. MBS is referring to NNPC. MBS, for the oil sector, MBS rely on NNPC to get most of their data, or on DPR, or now LUPRC. They rely on the CBN to get data in the finance sector. So in the end, when you rely on MBS, that's National Bureau of Statistics, you are actually quoting NNPC, you are quoting DPR or LUPRC, you are quoting NMDPRA, you are quoting CBN. That's exactly what is happening.
Are you saying that it's a general
so there is a problem in the system. I knew 2-3 years ago, there was this issue where some of us were like saying, look, why don't we actually have a grassroots data acquisition process for the government? And how do you get that done? The government should directly take that bold step let's have people you call constituency or ward agents, or whatever name they will choose to call them. Resident, they are from the electoral ward, the 8,809 or 8,810 electoral wards nationally. Employ people who can read and write, who are from those places and are residents in those places. Get another level that we are going to call validator. Now, whoever is getting the data is putting it somewhere on a national database that you have created. So he can tell you whether farming activities happen in that ward, electoral ward. What do they plant? What do they grow? He is the one to generate the social register where you know who is the poorest of the poor in that electoral ward, and he can display it. If you think your name should not be there, you will tell him to remove your name, right? But not that. And when the name is published, people in that electoral ward can see, and they know that of a truth. These are the people in our ward that are what? That are poor. Not that somebody submit a list for Kebbi in Abuja, collects the money, and the money does not even get to Kebbi. Or create account for people, and then there is an instruction when money gets into that account, it goes elsewhere. People are taking the government loan, and they will tell you that they saw the alert, and the next moment the money has been what? Has been removed. We've been on field survey and you hear such information. But if there are people that you have employed who report to the national right from the electoral wards, there is somebody at the local government level who is validating, right? Do a spot check and say, okay, this information from these 10 electoral wards under me are all correct, or this is not correct. I have gone to verify, and this is what it should be. Now it's a serious work. These are people you can use when you need to distribute palliative, when you even need to know, okay, what fertilizer or what are the needs at that level. Now we don't have such a bottom-up information gathering system. We also do not even have libraries where records are kept. We have 774 local government, and I'm not sure we have up to 500 public libraries in Nigeria.
That's one conversation that we can always look at. In fact, and the conversation now is around, this response from Tinubu. We even have Benedict Olalekan coming out to say that the Catholic Church is favoring Peter Obi. Is that a deflection from, Onaiyekan's point, or does he actually validate his point that there are people around him that are not telling him the truth?
No, you cannot. That there are people around him not telling him the truth is a valid statement. And like I said, if you bring an Onaiyekan, you should also come and show us. There are people around Cardinal Onaiyekan that are also not telling him the truth.
How do we
there are people around that are not telling him the whole truth.
Yes, there
are people around Abadebe that are not telling him the whole truth. So when you come to that one is established. But of course, Bwala is paid by the government, and you think you have been painted in negative light, you want to give response. So he's simply just doing his job as a media or a public communicator for the government. Now, there were a lot of issues raised. Yes, some macroeconomic indices can be doing well, but we know that the micro is still not doing well enough. Petrol is still high, transportation is still high, there are still some measure of insecurity, but the fact that there are measure of insecurity is also not to say that the government is not doing anything. But okay, you are working, appreciate the government for what he has done, but let them know that there are still gaps, and come with suggestion as to ways and manners with which things can grow up. Of course, there was in that conversation the demand for return of mission schools. The practical reality is that if you return some of the school today, can the mission take them back to the standard they were at creation? In those days, we call children that go to Catholic secondary school, we call them father boys. some of us went to Anglican, and then of course, even though you have a chapel inside the school, you are not directly responsible to the reverend or the reverend canon in charge, as against the Catholic school where the reverend father is actually in charge of the school. Now, can we restore the same standard if we take back some of the big secondary schools that were taken from them? That's a question that can be answered. Now, today, new schools can be built. New schools can be established. Can the mission go ahead and establish new schools and run them privately without involving the government? The answer is yes. Veritas belongs to the Catholic mission in a way. You have Ave Maria, you have a number. All churches, even religious bodies and private individuals today run schools up to the university level. So I think that this argument of back and forth all the time of we want those schools back, and the states that are not releasing them may understand why they are not releasing them. But I think that that is also a discussion. Secondary schools belong majorly to the state government. That is a discussion, like the president suggested, that should happen at the state levels or at the level of the governors forum, because the president cannot direct state. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. The president has no role in what happens with state-owned secondary schools or state-controlled secondary school. So bringing the matter for me to him in a meeting where the governors are not present or where the governor is not represented is possibly more like, do I call it a distraction or a deflection? But in all, I think that the church or the Catholic mission has the right to make its position known to the president because there is a forum for it. Every other religious body should be also given the same level so that you are gathering the right information, and then within the mix of that you select what you should select. But basically I will say that to a large extent Onaiyekan and the church is right. The government also have a right of reply, and I think that where the reply from the government is now coming is you had a private meeting with the president, and then the next moment you are more like in the press or in the national television, right, reviewing the same thing. Now what some people are more like, the gap between when the meeting happened and when you come up to share or discuss in the open the outcome of a private meeting was just too close. And that makes some people to think like, okay, maybe this was a premeditated action. We're going to him and we're coming back to you to let the whole world know what his position is on this matter.
We do have SGF George Akume coming and taking a stand that Tinubu's administration wants a stronger partnership with the Catholic bishops and other faith and civil society groups.
There is nothing wrong in that as of today, or even in most countries. Now, I did a bit of information science, and I could tell you that some of the genealogy records available in some part of Europe were based on what the church collated, right? Based on what the church collected. I don't know the name they call the church register now, or the church diary, is what they use. Okay, this person was born on this day. There was, even people who were not members of the church, you could see record in the church register. Why? Because they are neighbors of members of the church. Which somebody will say like, why did you come late for meeting? It will be like, oh, somebody gave birth around my house or somebody died. In the process, that name of the person that died comes into the church record. That person that gave birth next to his house comes into the church record. So apart from, so when you look at gathering or building record of a society, you cannot rule out the religious body. Why? Because they get direct information from their members. So if the church keeps proper record, if the mosque keep proper record, you actually can even harmonize what you are getting for them to feel the temperature of the nation.
Look at the conversation of IGP Olatunji Disu. I mean, removing 6 commanding officers of MOPOL and operations units attached to Total Energies in Port Harcourt, after they were found that they were, removing 70,000 naira out of officers' payments and all. This raises a lot of concern. In fact, what are your thoughts on this, and how can this be mitigated so it doesn't happen as it should?
Well, you are going to be looking at the fact that we should stop paying people as if they are casual workers. If you have deployed them to Total, and Total is supposed to pay them, or anybody at all, let it be that when you are deploying, you are also deploying based on accounts. So you already know that, oh, I'm taking this 25 arms guard. This is what the allowances will be weekly. You are not paying it to the commander by cash. You are paying it to their account. But before you pay, you possibly need the commander to confirm, right, those who have worked for the period or who merited the pay. But where you give their money to someone else in this age and time, when you know they all have their bank accounts and they all have their records, I think that is where the error is. But does it happen? Oh, it does happen. And not just in the police, not just in the paramilitary, even in the civil service. Even on our streets, you see different things that happen. And whatever is paid is different from what reflects at the grassroots. Go and buy, and then people buy, and there is also a difference between what you know the market value should be and what is being purchased. So the issue of transparency is what is lacking here, and that's what they need to bring in, so that when the police or any organization send you on a mission, they should give you your money and not give it to an individual to pay you over or under the counter. So that even when there will be tracing, there can be traceability. We know we have paid 100 people, and the 100 people possibly have their different 100 accounts and their different BVN. So it's not like one BVN is controlling 80 accounts, and then you think you have paid 84 people when 80% of the money, 80 of the 84, is actually going to one single individual. So I think there are things that need to be corrected. And of course, people who have been, they shouldn't just been transferred. They should be made to pay back whatsoever they have taken, and should possibly even be subjected to further disciplinary measures, because that shows incompetency of their command. And if you are maltreating men who are deployed to you for special operations that carry guns, then if such an individual is put in charge of civilians, God help them.
That brings us to the end of today's edition of Analyst Conversation. Our sincere appreciation to our guest, Mr. Benedict Olalekan Agunloye, for sharing his analysis and perspectives on these important national issues. Thank you to everyone who joined us. We hope today's discussion has given you a deeper understanding of the stories shaping our country today. I'm Roland Olabode. Join us again on the next edition of Analyst Conversation for more informed discussions and balanced analysis. Don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe at TOS TV Network. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and have a wonderful day. This has been the Analyst Conversation.